So the New Orleans Saints are 0-2, and they head up to Seattle to take on the Seahawks, trying to get off the schneid and get Spencer Rattler's first win as a starting quarterback and Kellen Moore's first win as an NFL head coach. It's an unenviable spot to try to go do it. As we look at this week for New Orleans, specifically what the big challenge is going to be is not only going on the road, but also the matchup that is maybe the biggest advantage that Seattle has is maybe the biggest question mark that New Orleans has. When you look at the New Orleans offensive line with Cesar Ruiz, who, as we've documented, is playing very poorly. James Hurst was with us earlier. Said he was even surprised by how poorly Cesar's played through 2 weeks. I'm not. Cesar Ruiz has been an average to below average starter in the NFL. He's a starter, but he's the lowest graded starter at his position. He's arguably the worst starter in the NFL at his position. Somebody has to be. I mean, you still be a starter, but you're just not a good one. And I think that's what you have right now with Cesar Ruiz. You have Taliesin Fuaga with an injured back and an injured knee at right tackle. You have Kelvin Banks, who's, feeling his way as a starter at left tackle here in his rookie season, only entering his third game. And then it looks like Trevor Penning, now Dylan Radin's out, it looks like Trevor Penning is going to return this week and get the start at left guard. The constant has been Eric McCoy, who's obviously been a stalwart at center, one of the best centers in the NFL during his career. The challenge for New Orleans is you got to go against a Seattle defensive front, which is as good as a defensive line, especially on the interior, as there is in the NFL. And that's really the challenge when you have this really strong defensive line with Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy and DeMarcus Lawrence and Jaron Reed. I mean, you have such a disruptive defensive front from Seattle against this New Orleans offensive line, which is young, inexperienced, injured, and not playing well. And oh, by the way, you have to go do it on the road with a second-year quarterback with his first time as a full starter, who's 0-8 as a starter, and a head coach who's 0-2 in his coaching career. Now, if you want the other side of this, the reason to think, okay, maybe there's some optimism that New Orleans can keep this close and find a way to win it. First of all, you've done that for the last 2 weeks. Home against Arizona and San Francisco, you found a way to keep both those games close and to have a possession at the end of the game where you could have won the game. I mean, if Juwan Johnson makes the catch, albeit a difficult catch, but if he makes the catch against Arizona, I mean, you got an opportunity to probably go for a 2-point conversion to win that game, which is what I assume they would have done. A week ago against San Francisco, you had 2 possessions inside of 5 minutes to go win the game in a 5-point game. It was 26-21. You got the ball twice. You went 3 and out, and then you fumbled. So you just haven't been able to make the play late to win the game. I mean, look by contrast at what good teams do. And yes, I'll throw Baker Mayfield and Tampa in that mix. They're 2-0 to start the season because they've been able to put together late game drives to go win it like they did on Monday Night Football against the Houston Texans. The Saints have not been able to do that. But when you look at Seattle, this is a team that, in week 1 on their home field against San Francisco really struggled, man. They only put up 13 points on their home field in that game against the Niners and lost 17-13. Now, last week, they went to Pittsburgh across the country, and my goodness, did they pop right there. 31-17, they were the winner. Jackson Smith and Jigba, back-to-back games with 100 receiving yards to start the season for Seattle. So Sam Darnold at quarterback, who I can't argue has been spectacular through 2 weeks, but he certainly has been plenty good enough, was plenty good enough to win. In the opening week, he completed 70% of his passes against San Francisco. But no touchdowns, no picks, only threw for 150 yards. It was a low-scoring conservative game. They were leaning on their running game, but Jackson Smith and Jigba had 100 receiving yards. And then last week against Pittsburgh, he was 23 of 33, completed 67% of his passes, 2 touchdowns. He did throw 2 picks, but he threw for a shade under 300 yards. So that opportunity is there. And especially with no Chase Young, the Saints might struggle to pressure Sam Darnold. And if you can't pressure Sam Darnold, one of the big questions is, do we trust the Saints cornerbacks like Kool-Aid McKinstry, is he ready to be a lockdown corner against the number one wide receiver in the NFL? I don't know that we can definitively say that so far through these first 2 weeks, and this is a giant challenge now when you look at what Seattle is going to have, on the outside in this ball game, especially with the way Jackson Smith-Njigba has started this season for the Seahawks with back-to-back 100-yard receiving games to start the season. So, look, Zach Charbonnet is out. Kenneth Walker is still there, averaging better than 5 yards a carry so far through the first 2 weeks of the season. And remember, receiving outside of Jackson Smith-Njigba, Cooper Kupp is now in Seattle as well. Elijah Arroyo, their tight end there, is an option. So they may not have the depth of receiving options, but they certainly have top-level receiving options. We'll see how the Saints may match up there. I certainly hope it doesn't come down to a kick, because Blake Grupe already has missed a 40 and 37-yarder in each of the first 2 weeks for a guy that was so outstanding during training camp. To miss relative chip shots in the NFL that every NFL kicker should make 100 times out of 100 is certainly disappointing. But New Orleans goes on the road as a 7.5-point underdog in this ball game. I would love to see the Saints find a way to scratch out a win, but my feeling was I hoped they could split those first two. And I didn't think they'd win at Seattle. Certainly didn't think they would win. Certainly don't think they will win at Buffalo next week. But really dreaded the thought of an 0-4 start. That's what they're staring down the barrel unless they can find it, because I don't think they're not winning next week in Buffalo. And anyone to suggest otherwise, it's just anything other than just the any given Sunday mantra. It's nonsensical. There isn't a logical reason to expect that. This is one where maybe you pressure Sam Darnold. Maybe you're able to get a little bit going in the running game. Maybe you get a turnover. Darnold did throw a couple of interceptions last week in Pittsburgh, for Seattle against Pittsburgh. Maybe it's one of those things where you need a few things to break your way to be able to find a way to win this game. It's just hard to predict that happening. That's why the Saints right now are a 7.5-point underdog in this game, and I think that's probably how it ends up. I think you're probably looking at something like a 24-17 type of game. I think the Saints will find some success offensively, just not enough consistently, and I don't know that the Saints defense is good enough at this point that I can count on them to limit the run with Kenneth Walker, even with Zach Charbonnet not there, to be able to do enough on the road to try to find a way to get a win. So I will take Seattle to win this game. I think the spread around the number is probably about right. If you're betting it, I won't bet this game, but if you're betting it, the hook might provide some value. It's off the key number of 7, so 7 and a hook. The Saints with a touchdown and a hook, they've been able to keep 2 games close. I probably would like New Orleans with the points in this game, but I do think Seattle wins, drops the Saints to 0-3, and they're certainly going to lose next week in Buffalo to fall to 0-4. But as I've said since the preseason, would really target the Giants and the Patriots, the 2 home games after the Saints play their back-to-back road games, when they're home against the Giants in Week 5 and then home against the Patriots in Week 6. You can win those games. And even if it's splitting them and you win one of them, you can win those games. Then you go to the Bears, who have had some struggles here in the early part of this season as well. So there's some opportunity for New Orleans ahead. I just don't know that it's in these next 2 weeks on the road. So give me the Seattle Seahawks to win 24-17 in Seattle on Sunday.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.